I love experimenting in my writing. I like trying new things. I like taking on new challenges. I think it gives flavor to life. But how far can we go with the weird in our writing? Now, the answer to my question in the intro of this episode is that the weird stuff you can do in your writing has no bounds. You can do as much as you want. You can go as far as you want because you are an individual person who can do what you want, right? You can go as far as you want. And I encourage you to experiment when you're writing. When you are experimenting with your writing, I want you to remember one thing. Not everything you do has as much value as other things you do. Just because it's different does not mean it has as much value as something else, right? There are certain experiments you do in your writing that you're going to find are very, very good. And there are certain experiments you do in your writing that you're going to find you need to hide and never show to anybody ever. Or you could show them to somebody and they could give you critiques and you could help refine that idea and actually turn it into something good. If you don't know, there's actually people who polish poop. They take these big things of poop, the round balls. I don't know where the poop comes from, and they polish it until it turns into something that shines and it looks like it's made of rock, right? It looks like it's polished stone. So it could be the case that you run into something horrible and you polish it up so much and you work on it so much that you actually take that horrible thing that's really weird and you turn it into something good. But it is definitely the case that not everything you do will be good. Not everything you do that is weird will be good. Not everything you do that is deviant in writing will be good, or anywhere else will be good. Not everything you do that breaks norms will be good. That's just how life works. And I think this is a rule that applies across, not just across writing, it's across everything. Just because it's different than how everybody else does it does not mean that it's better than how everybody else does it. Just because it's the same doesn't mean that it's better either, but I think we also need to not go in the opposite direction too far. Now I say experiment, try different things, but have a critical eye when you look at those different things. There's too many artists I see, and it's not often authors, but it's other types of artists, and they create something, and they put it out for the world to see. And there is value in doing something that's different and weird and trying something out and putting it out into the world to see, but at the same time, we've elevated things that should have not been put out into the world. We've said this is something everybody should look at when it isn't very good. Now, I have some episodes on modern art, and a lot of modern art has issues. A lot of modern art has stripped away value from it, right? People, in a lot of cases, people don't try to put value into modern art, and there's actually a very good reason why that happens. I think it's actually related to finances of very rich people, because what happens is a person who is very rich will have somebody make a painting, they'll bring it to the appraiser will appraise it at a really high value, the person will buy it, and then they'll have the value of that painting. So that actually does happen, and then they store their money in the painting. They invest in that painting, and that painting won't go down in value because it's fine art. So there is some corruption that goes on in the art world just so very, very rich people can store their wealth in artistic works. But when we look at something that has been elevated, we need to actually look at it with a critical eye. Just because someone puts something out in front of us and says that it's great doesn't mean that it's great. And this goes across the board for everything. I do not think that we should have an attitude that just because somebody looks like they are an expert at something that we should listen to them. It should be more that we see that person has shown themselves to be correct before we actually start to take them at their word. And I think that you can apply the same idea to experimenting in your own work, right? If you are someone who has been doing something for a very long time and you're very critical about your work and you take a leap and you try something different, and you're like, man, this is going to be really good, and you've shown in the past that you have done a lot of really good things by taking these leaps, and you can assess what is good and bad, that is different. Gaining experience is very important for understanding whether these strange things we do are good or bad. I don't have much to say about this, so I just want to reiterate what I wanted to say before. Doing weird things can land you on brilliance, but it can also land you on something ugly. And you might not even know it's ugly because ugly can get you attention too. So you actually think through whether that thing you landed on is brilliance or ugliness. And ask people, Is this good or is it bad? Try to gain that understanding, try to gain that ability to assess whether something is good or bad, because in some cases you might put something out into the world and people are like, this is the best thing ever. And it might not actually be of that much value. You can make money on a lot of things that are not of much value, which is to a certain degree unfortunate. People make a lot of money off stuff, but in my opinion, people should be trying to put out as much value into the world as possible. Right? As people, we should be trying to put out as much value into the world as possible in our work, especially if we're doing creative work. Weird is not necessarily good. Experimenting and the end result of an experiment is not necessarily good, but it can be fun. And I'm going to leave you with this. When someone is trying to invent something, they will try things again and again and again, especially if it's a new technology. They will experiment. They will push forward. They'll try one thing. They'll try another thing. They'll try 50 things. They'll try 1,000 different variations before they find the answer. And that's what you might have to do when you're experimenting with something, and it just takes time to find that one brilliant thing. If you enjoyed this podcast and you want to support me, there's really one simple thing you can do. You can go to danielpoppie.com/newsletter and sign up for my newsletter. And when you sign up, you'll actually be able to get access to my publication roadmap. So that's everything I have planned for pretty much every project I have into the next decade. Again, that is danielpoppie.com/newsletter. You can also find the link below.